chat. Let me pull up something real quick if I could see it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come to it later. But you was talking about leaking energy, and that's something I talked to Dr. B Serious about, and that's something, a big problem we have is that we leak energy a lot. We have an electromagnetic field, we have an aura. Some people's are more magnetic than others. Some people, when they walk in a room, you can feel them. And I guess some people, they're weak and you can see them just by the way they walk with their head down, and they may seem scared the way they act and behave, and that may show a weak magnetic field. But talk to me about leaking your energy, because that's very important that we need a concept that we need to understand.
Well, the best way to stop leaking your energy is to not make yourself so accessible. So, like I said, I'm one of
You was
those
talking
people.
about that, yeah. So the energy vampires, they often come disguised as friends, as family, as mates, and it could be pretty tricky about who to decide who. So what are some of the keys? Give me three keys to spot an energy vampire. Three things that, oh, that's an energy vampire. Oh, just give me three, like, so we could spot them and we could stop giving our energy to those people.
Someone who hasn't done their shadow work, because we're so caught up into this vanity concept of we like things based on how they look, especially men. So in order for a man to decipher if a woman is a energy vampire or not, so in order for a man to decipher if a woman is an energy vampire, he has to understand that is she trying to bond with him on a traumatic level.
Okay.
Most of the relationships that you see nowadays are basically trauma bonds. They're
Yes.
not based on mental connections. That's the diametrical difference between the two. But the only way you can see that is because the great majority of people are dealing with a lot of their household issues. So if you're dealing with household issues, you're dealing with past trauma from relationships. You're dealing with anything that's connected to, if you're connected to anything on a materialistic level. Because as soon as you take those things away, like I said, it would basically supplicate it into a weakness. So you'll only have to draw off my energy in order for me to get connected to your energy. So that's the difference. If anybody's dealing with trauma in the household from their parents, trauma in relationships, and if anybody's has a veneration for materialism, so much to the point where it becomes a weakness or an addiction.
Do you think, we're in a world where people, there's a lot of talk about mental issues. When we're on the internet and we see people talk a lot about, sometimes people will say things like, yo, I was thinking about killing myself, or I was thinking about harming myself. Do you think like those people could be energy vampires as well?
Sometimes. Sometimes, a lot of times people like that are manipulated by archons. They're also manipulated by grays, because everything they do is basically connected to a three-dimensional concept, because to where they want to have an experience in this realm through a physical vessel. So everything they do is they basically pull on the energy of people who haven't done their shadow work, the ones that's connected to trauma. So but also it also can have something to do with people just not doing their shadow work. You have to come to terms with your own fuck ups in order to revitalize your problem. Unless you know what I'm saying. Otherwise, you're just basically going to be a problem to everything all around you.
Yeah, what's one of the giveaways right away for me to energy vampires? When you tell them something good, they'll try to change the subject, or they'll get quiet. They'll be excited about shit. You be talking, then you just, yo, guess what happened? Yo, my nigga, yo, guess what just happened? Yo, and they'll be like, word, yo, so yo, you know, Trump just got arrested, right? They'll change the topic real fast. It'll throw you off. You'll be like, oh shit. And in your mind, you'll be like, yeah, Trump just get indicted. But in your mind, you like, this nigga just changed the subject in 0.5 seconds. You know
that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because like I said, man, because like I said, a lot of times when you a chosen one, your light is going to put a spotlight on other people's fuck ups. So much to the point, like I said, it's almost to the point where they got to look in the mirror because you're basically an emulation of what they want to be. So they use that as a defense mechanism to deviate from their own responsibilities. So it's all, like I said, it's all based on the psychology of people not dealing with their shadow work. Because like I said, that trauma creates behavior modification, which creates dark psychology. So this is where you get people want to hurt themselves, want to pull on other people's energy and things of that nature.
So you think when we use the term supreme magnetism, the more magnetic you are, you know, the chosen ones, the more magnetic you are, the more you should stay in solitude? Like, is that a necessity because of people that your light is so bright, they will try to pull on it? Like, is that something you definitely tell people who have strong magnetism, is to definitely spend the majority of the time in solitude?
Yeah, because we live in a time right now where everything is compromised. The great majority of people are compromised on a neurological level because, you know, people get their concepts of what it is to be, you know, to live in this system. They get it from television. So like I said, everything is based on external stimulation. So what happens is when you a chosen one, it's best that you just stay solo until you meet your tribe. So you meet people who are just like you, which is, you know, very slim to none.
Now, BDELL, you talk about shadow work and uncovering the past traumas in your life. Earlier you talked about these 3 shadowy beings that you encountered, that your life kind of changed after that. I don't hear people talk a lot about, since we're talking about shadow, is, wait, let me see. You see how let me see. So, okay. You see how like I'm casting a shadow on this? Nobody talks about our actual shadow. Like, I was thinking one day, like, people talk about doing meditations in the mirror and hypnotizing yourself. I wonder what information our shadow holds. You know how everything's been flipped and we're trained to think the shadow's behind us and it follow us. What if we're following the shadow and the shadow's not really following us? You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody really talks about what's contained in this blackness that we see everywhere we go. You know what I'm saying? Is there anything that you got intuitively or any downloads you got about this shadow that we see everywhere we go that we may not know?
No, but that's also could be the precursor to the fact that we live in a multi-dimensional universe.
Yeah.
How you know that your shadow self is not your higher self trying to work out the kinks and everything in this reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that thought before. That's a good one. That's a good one. Uh-oh. That's a good one, BDELL. Yeah.
So that's what I get from it, you know. So that's the only perspective that I got from it from my own interpretation.
Damn, nigga say your shadow self might be a higher self. Wow. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, we've been lied to on such a massive scale.
Most definitely.
That this process of let me ask you this: would you say, you know, the black nobility, as you call them, would you say they have an advantage over brothers like me and you because they may have these sacred texts, these sacred cheat codes, these sacred whatever that we may not have access to? Or do you think because we're connected to the all that there is no advantage level? What do you think about them having all this shit that these books and things versus us we scrambling, meditating, trying to get all of this now? Do you think they have an advantage over us, my brother?
Most definitely, because everything is basically controlled information. So like I said, since we live in this electrical grid system, it's hard for us to tap into those energy through magnetism. So like I said, we're not speaking in our native tongue. So it's hard for us to beat them on a on a spiritual level, because like I said, we're not tapped into our original energies when it comes to the power in the octave vibration of our tongue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they compromised everything through colonization. When they brought the missionaries over here and stole the land and gave us religion, they know that was the inception point of how they subjugated us to have dominion over us in this geographical landmass. So I would say, it's based on controlled information, because they have a lot of artifacts. You ever heard this thing called the Chronos Visor?
No, what's that?
They have that. That is something that the Black nobility has inside the Vatican archives, and it's basically a projection of a photon holographic depiction of what everything went on all throughout ancient history. They have that technology inside the Vatican. So that's how they're able to use what can I say? The CERN machine. Because the CERN machine is actually where the headquarters of the Black nobility is at, which is the particle accelerator and the hadron collider. So yeah.
Speaking of CERN, what are your thoughts on what they tell us about the Big Bang and what you've researched and found out? Like in terms of how
I don't think it happened like that. Just based on on my independent research.
Yeah.
So, but I think the Big Bang theory is based on a westernized doctrine.
Right.
I'm saying, to hide the fact on who was on this planet first and what really happened. Because if you understand the past, you will know what's going to take place in the future. Because like I said, I was telling you about the blue star Kachina. Because blue star Kachina is basically nature's version of a CERN machine, because it contains particles of hadrons to where it can manipulate the fragment of time and take it to a different space and time. So this is where you have the coming of the fifth dimension. That's why I said 2025, in my opinion, is where you're going to see the blue star Kachina in our atmosphere. So that's where that's like I said, that's going to be the inception point of the Great Awakening and the Great Separation.
Right.
The dimensional split of humanity from those who are connected to the three-dimensional and those ascending to the fifth dimensional.
You keep talking about this split.
I keep saying this, but that's where you're going to have the activation. When you see that blue star in the heavens that's coming from the 19th galaxy, that's going to be the inception point of great calamity, where you're going to have your so-called your pole shift. That is going to be your great reset right there.
In terms of everything that we're talking about, where do you think artificial intelligence fits into all of this?
Okay, I'm glad you said that. Well, like I said, everything is based on Babylonian money magic, which is a form of economic Darwinism, which is imperialism, which also leads to classism and racism. So when you have the AI technology, like I said, is the third eye, for the beast is actually artificial intelligence and technology. So when you have these smart cities and things of that nature, that is basically going to put an encryption on your anatomy and on your neurological chemistry. So now this is a problem, because now when you have these calamities on the planet, when you have the destabilization of the water source, now when you have these 5G frequencies, EMF waves of them, it basically swells up the nanotechnologies that's inside these AI technologies. When you're talking about the digital currency system, it swells up those particles and they basically become a bonding agent. So when you have a manipulation in the food source, when you have a manipulation in the water source, that's when you have the transmutation from those nanoparticles is transformed into a fungi. So that's where you get your P136 deletion syndrome, which is connected to the two frontal lobes of the brain, where you have humanity in a state of zombification. So it can be like I said, it could be detrimental to humanity, whether it's through genetically modified foods, through the water source, or due to the energy of the sun. Like I said, these AI technologies and these nanoparticles and these nanomaterials, when they break down in your molecular structure, is transmuted into a fungus, and the fungus takes over your body neurologically and biologically. So that, like I said, that's where you're gonna have your so-called zombie apocalypse.
Indeed,
it's a real thing, because you got everything is activated by fungi. So you got these fungi is activated by toxoplasma. You have many different forms of chloride. You got many different forms of acetate that was inside those strains. So everything is based on biochemical warfare. So like I said, when you amalgamate it with nanoparticles and nanotechnology, it transmutes into a fungus.
I got
I've been telling you all along through Resident Evil. They just put out everything is based on predictive programming. If you want to understand what's going on in the future, look at the perception. When you look at these movies on Netflix and stuff, they tell you what's going to happen. They put whatever is going to happen next. They put it on display on Netflix or Hulu. So, like I said, it's based on it's a socialization process, because they know what's going to happen. Because the CIA has an office in Hollywood, and Hollywood has an office in the CIA. So they know what's going to happen. They just put it in your face in the movies.
You ever took shrooms, BDELL?
No.
Ever plan on taking shrooms?
No, I'm cool, man. That's just that ain't me. I'm not a big smoker, big drinker, none of that. I'm just
you tap in naturally.
Yeah, I'm just me, man.
That's dope. And, you know, that's important. Understanding who you are. That, like they say, know thyself, and not following a trend or what anybody else is doing. So I'm glad that you figured out that that's not you.
Most definitely. You know, same thing with tattoos. I ain't got no tattoos. Everybody like, you ain't got no tattoo. Like, they look good on other people, but I'm just not a follower. You know. So,
right. You do what works for you.
Yep.
That's important. What about you know, I've heard flat earthers, people who follow the flat earth theory, have a different take on what gravity is. You know, what's your take? You know, we talked about protons, electrons, photons, and all of this. What's your thoughts on what exactly gravity is?
Well, I would say gravity, when you talk about, like I said, they say that space is operated by a big vacuum and things of that nature. Like I said, I don't really get into the hollow earth or if the earth is flat and things of that nature. But what I will say about the concept, if you say that the earth is not hollow, or if you say if it's flat or whatever, that'll get rid of, you know, the great majority of all the mythology in these ancient esoteric books of what really happened when you're talking about the inception of a certain species or a certain demographic. So a lot of people that's where, you know, because a lot of these beings, they come from inside the planet. So if you say if they come from inside the planet, is the planet Earth flat or is it hollow? But that's one of those things I haven't really like tapped into.
You know, since you're talking about inside the earth, have you ever done research on the golden city of Shamballah? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. Well, when you break down the etymology of Shamballah, it means the scent of Allah. So you have the Shamballah is it's kind of like the headquarters for the Intergalactic Confederation. So you also have the Shini tribe, you got the Napple tribe, you got many different forms of draconian reptilians that live inside Hollow Earth as well. So you got King Fiakor, which is Yakub's father. So like I said, the great majority of these ancient teachings and these ancient mythologies, if you say the earth is flat, you know what I'm saying, you basically got rid of 1/3 of all the mythology and Yakub's story and how he created humanity. So that's, like I said, I don't really get into the flat earth. That's the reason why. But they say that, you know, I know you've seen that pyramid, those pyramids that lead to a tunnel system underground. You see that the illustration? Because what I found out is that when you go to the book of Daniel, and when you go to the book of Daniel, and you translate it in ancient Hebrew and you read it backwards, it tells you that there's an intergalactic gateway that leads to Hollow Earth. So, like I said, most of the ancient teachings and the ancient Sumerian texts, they're also talking about beings that live inside the planet. Because it's actually a portal.
Yeah. Some interesting stuff, family. I'm about to take some Q&A. You good for you want to take some Q&A from the people, BDELL?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. We can.
Yeah, let's take a few questions from the family. We about to approach the hour mark. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Y'all know I start taking questions around this time. Yeah, we got a big crowd. We got about 2,700 people in the chat, in the audience right now. Make sure you hit the like button. That's important. Make sure you hit the like button, family. And give me some questions from my brother BDELL. While they get their questions together, brother, tell them your YouTube channel and your Instagram page, because you always got good information on there.
Okay. Well, my Instagram page and my YouTube is BDELL1014. B as in boy, D as in dog, ELL1014. It's basically the same as the nomenclature title at the bottom.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's give me some good questions for my brother BDELL before we get out of here. Let me see what y'all talking about. Okay. They want to know, what are some ways to start your shadow work process?
Come to terms with the problem first. So when you come to terms with the problem first, that's how you can tap into the energy to use it as an alchemical resource to transmute that negative energy into a positive. So let's just say if a person has a problem with pornography, or if they have a food addiction, if you have an addiction to anything, you should transmute that energy by doing your shadow work and doing something that's constructive. Use that energy to go to the gym. Use that energy to read a book, because like I said, reading books is weightlifting for the brain. So like I said, if you don't work out enough, you know what I'm saying? If you work out more than you read, you're still out of shape. So you got to activate that construct in order to reap the benefits of balance.
I like how you said that. You said reading books is workout for the brain. Very true, man. Very true. If I ain't reading a while and I start reading, I might fall asleep in like 5 minutes, brother, because it be too much of my brain. So reading definitely works the brain. It works different muscles, and I definitely advise everybody to get into the books. Those are very important. Don't leave the books alone. Let's get to the next question. Let me see. What do you think about black people with serpentine DNA? I've had a vision of myself as a reptilian or serpent being.
Well, I'm glad that question came up, because when you understand the mythology of Superman, when he draws most of his energy from the tri-solar system, when you're talking about a red sun, a blue sun, and the yellow sun. So that is the color spectrum of his garments is acclimated to the sun. So when you look at the logo on Superman's chest, is a serpent in the middle with a pyramid. So in order to vibrate at a higher frequency, you got to activate that serpentine energy, which turns you into a god, which activates the God particle, which is the neuroendocrine transducer. So we all have that serpentine energy within us. You know, it is just based on if you're able to tap into the energy of the source and connect to that sun. So that's how, like I said, that's how he was able to activate that God body and the Kundalini energy, that serpentine wisdom. So we all have that. We all have those activations.
Okay, let me get to this. This is a little lengthy question. If the mind is all and the universe is mental, why is there so much focus on all the physical stuff? Like everything is killing us and all the bad stuff around the corner and aliens, etc.
To look to where you have external stimulation, because they know that everything's internal. Because when you look in through external stimulation, that means that you don't have a veneration for everything that's to where you tap into the dark night of the soul. You cannot, you know what I'm saying? You cannot deviate from the system, because, like I said, they supplicate your emotions and they transmute it into a weakness. And they know that your weakness is connected to the physical world. So in order to deviate from the physical construct, you have to not have a veneration for people, places, and possessions. So much to the point, like I said, it becomes a weakness.
So many questions popping up. When I sun gaze, I can't tell if the sun is blue or if it's a hole. What are your thoughts?
Well, in my opinion, like I said, the sun in itself, the eyes is quartz crystal. So the eye, like I said, when you're vibrating at a certain frequency, when you tap into the energy of the sun, when you're doing sun gazing and that stuff, a lot of times, like I said, that can activate, the pineal gland. So due to the fact that we can only see 10% of the electromagnetic spectrum, so like I said, when you tap into sun gazing, this is how you know that, it's maybe taking you into a different place to where you can tap into certain color spectrums just by looking at sun gazing at the sun.
Indeed. All right, let's get to the next question. Do you think this is a simulation? If so, what is it for? Matrix.
Yeah, we're definitely living in a simulation for the archons. So this is basically everything is the three-dimensional reality is controlled by the demiurge. So like I said, when you understand the concept of the Saturn Moon Matrix, everything is based on mind manipulation, materialism. So everything is basically a how can I say, it's a program. Like being a teacher, that's a program. Being a police officer, that's a program. Being a pastor or a preacher, everything on this planet is a program to where you have external stimulation to where you don't look internal.
All right. Next question. Can you, this is the same guy. I'm gonna ask this question though. Can you speak on semen retention and how it expands our electromagnetic field?
Well, semen retention, like I said, they know that this is why they perpetuate sexual gratification, where you're talking about pornography. The reason they promote that because they know that our sexual energy is conducive to our evolution and ascension process. So if you're draining your energy, like your semen is also connected to brain matter. So that slows down the neural synapses to where you won't activate the neurotransmitters, which activates the God particle. So like I said, they know that our sexual energy has the ability to vibrate at a higher frequency to where you can ascend out of the matrix system. So if you're draining your life force, you're draining your soul.
Okay. Next question. Does spirituality matter if we're all in a simulation?
Yeah, because this is a learning experience. You're here to master yourself. So when I'm talking about, hold on, let me get this.
Okay.
When you're talking about Islam is not really a connected to monotheistic religion. Once you get to the inception point, it means internal self-law, internal self-law and management, to where you have management and you master yourself on this three-dimensional paradigm to where you deviate from all the afflictions of the matrix system, which is conducive to I, self-law, and master. So you master yourself. You're here to master yourself to where you can ascend. This is a school.
Okay, the next question. Do the archons have us in a soul trap?
Yes, all monotheistic religions is a soul trap. All genetically modified foods is connected to the nanotechnologies, which is a form of a soul trap, because that's why they're using horizontal gene transfer to transmute the consciousness of humans and put it inside AI technology, because they know that this is the last reincarnation cycle, because we ended the procession of the equinox. So this is the purification period, because they know that in order to, to galvanize some type of autonomy and self-preservation on this planet, they need to harvest our souls and put them inside forms of artificial intelligence, because they know that they cannot reincarnate back on this plane because their time is up.
Okay. Next question. Do you think your solar return day is a remembrance of your original home before you came here, like Planet 19 came from Planet Ritz 19th galaxy?
Well, I'm not sure, but well, Planet Riz is actually the 8th planet, and it's in the 19th galaxy. But I'm not, in my opinion, I'm not really sure about that one.
Okay, let's get to the next question. How do I tap? Tape, but I think they mean tap. How do I tap into my higher self, godly like?
Like I say, everybody got to come to terms with their with the afflictions and the trauma. Because when you come to terms with the afflictions and the trauma, like I said, you got to use that energy as an alchemical resource, transmute that negative energy and turn it into a positive. So that when you tap, like I said, that's when you're able to take control of your own reality in this matrix system.
Okay. Somebody said, okay, Candace, damn, yeah, I be forgetting about this. Okay, let me see what y'all say. I got a super chat question. This is damn, I can't put it on the screen. Okay, this is super chat from Chan Robinson. I appreciate the donation, Chan. Chan wants to know what you say that 2025 is also the end of the tribulation period.
No, I wouldn't say it's the end of a tribulation period, but it's the inception point of when you have the 9-year, which is represents completion. It's the completion of an old paradigm into a different life cycle. So this is where you're going to have the dimensional split. So you're going to go from the 3rd dimensional energy to a 5th dimensional energy. Right now we're in the 4th dimension, but like I said, that's where you're going to have the inception point of the 5th dimensional energy that's in the planet, that's activated by the blue star Kachina, that creates this annihilation energy of the 4th world. So that's when you're going to have this phenomenon of the what you call it, how can I say it? You're going to have the activation of sun heat genes, which are prominences. So this is where you're going to be able to tap into your higher abilities. All these things that they said in the superhero movies, and they said it was all fake and stuff like that. That's where you're going to draw your energy from. That's the main source of energy that Superman drew his energy from. When you understand the mythology, he drew his energy from the solar transmission. But like I said, that's going to be the inception point. They also, like I said, connected to Hopi mythology. They said that around that time, that's where you're going to have the messianic figure show up on the planet.
Okay, wow. Let's get to another super chat question. What about the Yoruba language? This question was posed earlier when you was talking about the English language being a lockdown language. So I guess this individual want to know what about the Yoruba language. You was talking about the ancient tongue.
No, I haven't really studied that language. I'm not sure if it's ancient Proto-Semitic or not.
Yeah. Okay, somebody wants to know, what are your thoughts on psych meds and how to get off?
Well, I know, like I said, it's psych medicines. Like I said, it puts an encryption on your mental on your neurological chemistry. It puts an encryption on it, so it throws off. When you understand when you just understand the inception point of Westernized medicine. Westernized medicine was actually created to break down to where you cannot tap into the energy of the soul. So, like I said, the best way to get off of it is through maybe detoxing, having an alternative to where you use something that's more holistic. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I remember Kanye said that when he was on his psych meds, he wasn't as creative as he was as when he was off it. So that's one of the reasons why he wanted to really get off it, because his creativity. and that's your soul, that creative spark. So
speaking of that, because like I said, now I'm glad you said that, because when the frequency of the mind is amalgamated with the soul, because when you tapped into the energy of the soul, your brain creates more neurons, and the neurons create dendrites, and the dendrites is the crystals in the brain. So like I said, that's how you're able to become a whole brain thinker, to where you can tap in on a creative level. So that's actually true. So it takes away your creative energy.
all right, next question. When the pole shift happens, do you think there will be beings who reveal themselves to help the righteous of humanity?
Well, according to Hopi mythology, during the last when we had a pole shift, a lot of those beings took some of these ancient tribes. They took them into the caverns of the earth.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if that's the same thing is going to transpire, but according to all the mythology, they said that there were beings that came to this planet and took them to a different dimension, or they took them inside the caverns of the earth to escape the calamity.
All right. Wow. This is a good show, family. We're gonna do about 3 more questions and then we're gonna get out of here. Let me get to this question. Do I have to be a vegan or controlled diet to tap in and see the astral realms?
Not necessarily, because like I said, everybody on this planet, some of us was incarnated and we have a role to play. So, I don't really get into the dietary system when it comes to stuff like that. But like I said, because you got some people saying that you're not spiritual if you eat meat, and then you got some people say it don't matter. So, like I said, it's really all about if you're doing the work, and you feel intuitive and genuine about what you're doing, then so be it.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, indeed. Um, I just met a lot of spiritual folks who are not vegans, family. A whole lot.
You
But
said you have.
yeah, I have met a lot of folks who, some of the most spiritual people I've met in my journey down here, they definitely were not vegan.
But here's another thing though. Are you really vegan if you speak in an acidic language?
Mm.
Because like I said, the English language is a European Albion dialectic.
Mm.
Electrical energy is acidic to the body. So just as much as you eat chicken or pork or whatever you eating that's acidic to the body, the English language does the same thing. So in order to be highly alkaline, you have to be operating in your native tongue, because like I said, ancient Proto-Semitic language is highly alkaline to the body because it's magnetic.
Mm. Yeah, man. Wow. Let's get to another question. Uh this is a interesting question. Our original language is the bird language. I guess that's a statement. Our original language is the bird language. That's pretty. You ever heard of that one, BDELL?
Well, I've never heard of that, but I mean, this is the land of Tahuti,
Woo.
so I
Uh-oh.
mean that makes a lot of sense.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh man. Let's get to Candace wants to know how does BDELL see the unfolding of the racial tensions over the next few years?
Well, the reason I say that is because when you understand what's going on from a genetical level, um, there's going to be a certain demographic where the genome is going to be shut down. So this is why they like to perpetuate, um, how can I say it, different races amalgamating with other races, and they perpetuate it because they know that a certain demographic, their gene pool is going to be shut off due to the energy of these suns that's coming to put the planet right back in balance. So, like I said, it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be the foundation of itself. The racial tension is going to be based on genetical self-preservation.
Mm-hmm. Next question. We're gonna do two more, then we're gonna get out of here, family. Is sign language a part of our culture? Sign language.
I agree. I mean, when you understand the inception of who was here first and who's who, I would say it is. I haven't really tapped into sign language, so
yeah. Some people. I was thinking that in my mind. Where somebody just made a comment. Somebody said, where did they say that? Somebody said sign language are mudras. I thought about that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely thought about that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is an interesting conversation, family. I thank you for participating in this Q&A. We're gonna do one more question, and then we got to get out of here. Um, we already talked about semen retention for anybody asking about that. All right, let's end it on. Hmm. They want to know your thoughts about telepathy.
Well, telepathy is a real thing. That was the first language.
Mm-hmm.
So I forgot there was a movie that came out probably like 2 years ago. But like I said, everything as far as like your telepathic abilities, like I said, it's going to be activated. It's going to these abilities is going to be online when you have this new sun that's going to be hitting our atmosphere. In my opinion, around 2025. Like I said, you're going to be able to draw those energies, telepathy, psychometry, clairvoyance. All these abilities is going to come online, and it's based on the electromagnetic energy of the blue sun. So, like I said, telepathy is a real thing. It's kind of like one of those things. Like some of these abilities is coming online right now. Like you be thinking about somebody, and you haven't seen them in a couple of weeks, and then you at Walmart and you run into them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Definitely. Let me get this last one because I think this is a good one because we're talking about being highly magnetic, attracting things, and being in isolation, solitude. This person wants to know, when you're in isolation, do you only isolate from people, places, habits, and is music included? I think people got different ways they be in solitude, but what's your thoughts on this question, BDELL?
Yeah, I agree because this is how you know that the planet is speeding up in vibration. So when the planet speeds up in vibration, in order to harmonize with the planet, you got to fast from many different things that subjugate you on a mental level. So, like I said, it comes in a form of how to revitalize your energy. So, like I said, you know that the great majority of everything on this planet is compromised. So, like I said, you have to isolate yourself in order to regain that energy back. So, like I said, whether it's people through family members, ex-boyfriends, girlfriends, and things of that nature, going to parties and stuff, everything is pulling on your energy. So, like I said, it's coming down to the point where you have to do everything in increments because too much of anything is bad for you. So, like I said, isolation is key when you want to deviate and tap into your higher self by deviating from everything that's connected to the three-dimensional paradigm.
Man, BDELL, man, I definitely want to thank you. One more, I know I keep saying that, but this is really the last word. Your thoughts on the Vatican and the doctrine of discovery? I don't think they got rid of it, but they talked about it. What's your thoughts about that, BDELL?
I haven't really. I keep hearing it. Somebody keeps sending me stuff about it. I haven't really looked into about what's going on.
Okay, all right. With that being said, once again, BDELL, before we get out here, please leave your info for those who want to tap in with you, brother. YouTube, Instagram.
Okay, YouTube is BDELL1014. B as in boy, D as in dog, ELL1014. And the same thing for my Instagram, BDELL1014, BDELL1014.
Hey, I want to thank you, my brother, for coming on here once again, man. Every time you've come on here so far, I mean, you absolutely drop it, bro. So
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. I advise everybody to follow this brother on Instagram and YouTube. He always has amazing posts, and the brother's on it, man. He's serious about this information. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We still got about 2,800 people in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. I should be on another show tomorrow night, so hopefully I'll see y'all tomorrow night. With that being said, we getting out of here, family. Peace.
Peace.
To the best.
Yeah, hold on. Peace to the family.
Yes.
Indeed.
Be there, Red Pill. How y'all doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing
wonderful. All is well. You know, I'm grateful to be here.
Indeed. Oh man, we're gonna have a great show tonight. As usual, I really appreciate what you brothers bring to the global community in terms of your teachings, and I know tonight is going to be absolute fire. Great conversation tonight. I was actually inspired to talk about this. Just watching, just scratching my head. I'm watching the situation with John Morant, and that's an aspect of what we're dealing with. Right. And I'm scratching my head, and I'm saying, how the hell are you that dumb? And you're not that dumb. He's a smart dude. People who are around him say he's actually pretty intelligent. And I notice every time he's flashing the gun. For those who don't know, John Morant probably one of the top 5, definitely top 10 basketball players in the NBA. Amazing talent, amazing young talent. The brother's only 23 years old, and he was caught earlier this year flashing a gun on the internet. Yeah. Listening while he was listening to NBA YoungBoy. I think he was in a strip club. He listened to NBA YoungBoy flashing a gun. Got suspended by the NBA. Big ordeal. Everybody said, all right. The brother made a mistake. He's young. Let's hope he learned his lesson. 3 months, 4 months later, this dude is in the car, a dude filming him, and he flashes a gun again. We like, what the hell is wrong with this nigga's crazy? So, but one thing that everybody noticed, that everybody's commenting on, is that he's listening to NBA YoungBoy while he's doing this. So not to single NBA YoungBoy out, but to have a bigger, wider, deeper conversation that we continuously have that the world has not caught up on yet about music. We are very musical people genetically. In our DNA, we are music. We vibrate. We're rhythmic. We're melodic. We're harmonic. And it seems as though the music influences us more than anybody in the world. I don't know. Maybe you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to talk to y'all. What it seems to be that when people listen to this music, that they are possessed. They know right from wrong. They know what they're doing, what's wrong or what's right. But in that temporary moment, when they're vibing out to the music, it's like they're possessed, and they just do whatever the music tells them to do in that very moment. So let's talk about frequency programming, possession, and let's talk about this whole John Morant thing, and we'll get wider with the discussion and conversation. But what do y'all think about music having the ability to temporarily possess somebody, and regardless of whether you know right or wrong, you're going to end up doing shit that you hear in those lyrics?
All right. To add context to the question, excellent question that you asked real quick, my good brother.
Yeah,
I want to open it up before anybody says anything to add context to who NBA YoungBoy is.
Okay, great.
Because there's often an arrogance that people will have about artists that they don't know about, or if they don't listen to them, or if they're younger than them. Don't let it be a name that somebody who's in this audience has never heard before. NBA YoungBoy, who it, man? Why are we talking about that? That, you know what I mean? And they'll try to dismiss it as something small.
Right.
But I want to share with everybody that's out there that this artist that we're talking about, and when we talk about the frequency, and when we talk about the influence, and when we talk about who controls the minds of your children, because I saw y'all all on Mother's Day. Everybody is a mama. Y'all all got teenagers. Mm-hmm. He is on Billboard, right? Mm-hmm. He broke a Billboard record for having the most album entries on Billboard, more than Jay-Z. Hold on.
I did not know that.
Yes.
He has more album entries on Billboard, right? Not number ones. He has 3 number ones on the Billboard charts, but he had more album entries on the billboards than Jay-Z. Okay, broke Jay-Z's record, right? He surpasses Jay-Z for solo rappers with the most charting albums on Billboard Top 200. So they not listening to his singles. They're listening to his albums, the whole body of work. Okay. He is a mega artist that nobody really understands and knows about of the older generation. Okay. He's not only setting the trend, but he is creating the egregor. He is tapping into the egregor that these children are marching to. And when we identify what we're seeing, right, and we are identifying this as crash out culture. This crash out culture is an offshoot of what our good brother, the Kabbalah god, A.A. Rashid, the rabbi, coined aesthetic nihilism, right? And we could get into the Western philosophy of nihilism and existentialism and everything, so we can understand what it is that we're seeing. Not just with NBA Youngboy, he belongs to a collective. This collective of artists represent what we would deem shadow. This collective of artists will represent what we deem the shadow self or the dark side, right? In man, you're presented with three different personas. You have your public face that you show the world. You have your public persona that you go outside with. Then you have your private persona or your private self or the private that nobody knows, only you and your whiz. She knows your kinks. She knows what you like. She knows your secrets. But then you have the secret self that people don't know where the bodies are buried. Only you know these secrets. It's some things that you take to the grave with you that people really don't know about, and they'll never get to see that person. These artists, they come to us with their secret self. I'm a killer. And we start finding out that they really killing. These artists are different than the artists that we grew up with. The artists that we grew up with were not killing people. They were talking about it. They were rapping excellently about it. They were planting the seeds. The artists of today are really killing shit. For real, for real. To the level where there was a documentary on King Von and they identified him as a serial killer and made the case.
Damn.
Yeah. They showed, they broke down the definition of what a serial killer, and he fit right in that category. And the documentary, which is 3 hours long, lined up all of his bodies. They showed how he would tweet about it. But let me share something with you about what he was doing in those days, because we're talking early Twitter. We're talking 2012, 2011. He was seeding the minds of millions of the youth back then. Right? So the 12-year-olds grew up to be the 20-year-old Pop Smokes of 2020. They was like, yo, Pop Smoke looks so old for his age. Yeah, because he was participating in the Squid Games of what Chicago and them were doing on Twitter, right? People talk about AI is going to kill him. Nah, them niggas from Chicago is going to kill you. The drill rappers are going to kill you. We watching rappers kill each other. This was never like this before. I was reminded of that watching the Dear Mama documentary on Tupac Amaru Shakur, right? Put some respect on his name. And it was showing that it wasn't a lot of rappers getting shot every day back in those days. When he got shot in Quad Studio, the next rapper to get shot was him in Las Vegas. But nowadays, in the year of 2020, there was 200 dead rappers. So there's an egregor on the loose. And an egregor is a thought form. The day they made hip hop pop music, they put that egregor into the mainstream. And by putting it into the mainstream, by making a certain frequency pop or popular culture, oh man, they succeeded in doing something that we're seeing the remnants of. And that is to erect what I could see as, if they say that if they say that hip hop is dead, then goddamn it, this is the deaf culture. So yeah, I'm handing it over to you, brother.
Well, I agree when you was talking about the psychological egregor. So that is conducive to the fact that it's acclimated to dark psychology. So the music in itself when you at a low vibrational state, it can basically cause a behavior modification.
Yes.
So with that being said, that's a form of demonic possession, I should say, because you also got to understand that your energetic morphic field is connected to your nervous system, and your nervous system is also acclimated to your neurological faculties. So when your energetic morphic field is at a low vibrational state, this is where you got demonic entities and disembodied spirits can attach themselves.
Right.
To the so now you can control on an energetic level to where you can carry out a certain agenda that's being propagated by archons in the quantum world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we're talking about individuals who are not only lowering their fields and whatnot, they are intoxicated, they are inebriated, right? They're underneath the trance of pharmacopoeia in some states and whatnot. So they got holes in their aura already. You know what I mean? Their defenses are down because, you know, they're defocalized. That brings these walk-ins. What are these walk-ins doing? These walk-ins are those voices that people claim that they're hearing. Those voices that people that they claim that they're hearing are actually that's the egregor. That's the programming. You know what I'm talking about? And it's telling you, you know, so people listen to certain type of music and then you go to sleep and you have a nightmare. You go to sleep and you start thinking about that. You go to sleep and an incubus or a succubus basically is on top of you. You know what I'm talking about? You have one of those, you listen to a certain type of frequency of music at 3 a.m. while smoking some GMO weed, while drinking some Douce. You know what I'm talking about? And you might knock down a sausage or two. Pause. Right? And then you wonder why when you fall down or when you fall out, because people are not even going to sleep, they're passing out. And then you're going on these journeys and whatnot, and you like, yo, and don't be on some shrooms or something, because a lot of y'all, I don't even want it. Y'all really be on the edge.
And then also to add to that, you also have the 72 sigils of demons that's conducive to the Ars Goetia. When you look at certain cymatic frequencies of the music, they're basically a direct emulation of those sigils to where some can take over the body. So that's why it's imperative to listen to music that's operating at 420 megahertz frequency. So that's why.
At least for a cleanse or a washing, it's almost like an auric shower. You know, I'm not gonna be sitting in the Maybach, you know what I'm saying, going way back and try to lie to y'all and make it seem like I'm only listening to opera music. You feel me? I'm a Scorpio. I indulge in those dark chords and those synths and whatnot. I can listen to the darkest of the darkest things. It's what is it doing to it's not about what you listening, it's what are you doing after listening to these quote unquote frequencies and whatnot. I know how to transmute. I know how to turn that into some form of creativity and whatnot. I know how to basically, I'm an alchemist. I can alchemize that energy that I'm receiving from one of these Gucci Man classics and whatnot, and I could apply that to where it needs to be applied because my mind is right. I'm thinking at a higher level. So, you know what I'm saying? Nothing can, it's not going to bring me down, but I would be almost remissive if I were not to identify multiple throughways in these artists that are on similar frequencies. And I'm like, nah, I see the egregor at work. It's a demonic one at that. And egregor, let me give you the definition because people should really look into this. It has an historic reference to it, but it's also an occultic aspect to it. And you're dealing with high level occultists. You're dealing with high level, quote unquote, wizardry in these industries that are multi-trillion dollar industries, but not just multi-trillion dollar industries. These are the industries that control the world. Music is a global power. It could be weaponized in many ways. It's beyond a cash cow.
And I agree with you were saying, like it's being weaponized. It's most definitely being weaponized on a scale of eugenics as well, because a lot of people got to understand that it's also plays a part with the with Henry Kissinger when he said that he put out that National Memorandum 200 in 1975. He said that Black birth is at unstable heights, and the best way to basically infiltrate, us on the spiritual level is to compromise the music.
Right after Patrick Moynihan put out the report in 1965, the Negro Problem, right? So that's their version of white papers, right? They put out research papers, and their research papers are picked up by colleges, professors, scholars, scientists, investors, all kind of people around the world. They'll take that paper and that research and work upon it. You know what I mean? They'll create experiments, they'll create budgets. And they'll put those budgets to work. And if anybody on this quote unquote channel or this platform tonight is under the impression or as naive enough to think that the music industry has not been highly infiltrated by CIA, FBI, and all of the quote unquote counterintelligence agencies, the same counterintelligence agency that crushed the Panthers and crushed all of the resistance behind these quote unquote what they call enemy lines, then you out of your goddamn mind. I was in Philadelphia airport, and they had a display about the 50th anniversary that coincides with the 50th anniversary of hip hop of Stax Record, Philadelphia Sound, right? And when I saw that, it reminded me of what happened with Gamble and Huff when Clive Davis went from the CIA, wrote a white paper detailing how to infiltrate black music. Clive Davis took that white paper and then he infiltrated Philadelphia. And when they took down that black label, when they took down that magnificent, I'm talking about Patti LaBelle, I'm talking about Teddy Pendergrass, I'm talking about the super duper legends. If you don't know about the Philadelphia Sound, please look it up. And it was all melanated owned and whatnot. But that was a checkmate. When they was able to take that, they infiltrated, and we've never been able to look back. They created departments and they labels for R&B. And then Clive Davis let things rock for a little while. He's the main culprit. I'm one of the people who, yes, I will identify players and quote unquote agents that exist down the line and whatnot, but I like to hit primal source. You know what I'm talking about? I like to attack the primal source. It's almost like getting to the root of a tree. You people are out here cutting off the branches and whatnot. I'm going for the head of the snake. I'm going to give you the root, so when you pull it up, you can really affect this thing. Because there are living people right now who are the root to some of the issues and